move on to the 5th chapter of Footprints Without Feet. Did I say the name of the book or the name of the chapter? Well, it is the name of the chapter as well, by H.G. Wells. If you can recollect, in grade 7 you had this novel, The Invisible Man. This is of it. This is a part of that book itself. So you can, just see, if I talk of footprints without feet, if you imagine, what is it? It's a little ghostly type, isn't it? So this is what your story is based on. So let's see. First, let's catch about the author. So Herbert George Wells was a great writer who wrote novels, history and science fiction. The most famous works of H.G. Wells are The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, the book which I mentioned to you, and The Island of Dr. Moreau. So this story that you're going to read right now, have a look, you'll recollect that story as well. So the plot tells you, Footprints Without Feet describes the story of a brilliant scientist, Griffin, who degenerated himself into a lawless person. Lawless as in who never obeyed laws. So he degenerated himself. Remember, he was a brilliant scientist. So he tried an experiment on himself. We'll know much in detail. Griffin discovered that the human body could become transparent and invisible. He discovered that it can become transparent as well as invisible. But he misused his great discovery. He did not use the power of invisibility for the welfare of society and humanity at large. He misused it totally. He misused it to threaten, trouble, and beat innocent persons and rob them. He made illegal entries in stores and shops and stole things from there. He committed a burglary in a clergyman's house in Iping. Griffin remained invisible or unseen only when he was without clothes. If he put on clothes, he lost his invisibility and could be seen by the people around him. Pretty simple, pretty clear what he did and what nonsense he created, and how he misused it. That's how they've mentioned. The lesson gives a message that misuse of science and its great discoveries can make even a brilliant scientist like Griffin a monster and a threatening, lawless person. It's like there is the devil residing in you, because if this nonsense you can do with the discovery that you have done, then how are you even brilliant? There is no humanity left in you. You become a lawless person. So let's know at length. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh, muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. They were shocked. They were surprised at the fresh, muddy imprints. So it was fresh mud, and they could see the imprints of a pair of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? Sis, what would this man be doing? He is barefooted. You can make it out. It's not the thing or the sole of the shoe. You can make it out. He was barefooted. And where was the man? Okay, if he has gone, then where is he? As they gazed, as they looked around, a remarkable sight met their eyes. They saw something more interesting. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. Now, while they were looking for the man, suddenly in front of them, they saw again the two marks appear. Further footprints followed. Then the footprints went on coming, and they were seeing it happening. One after another, descending the steps and progressing down the street. The feet, those imprints were coming, down the steps and then out on the street. The boys followed. They were wondering, what is this happening? So they started following where the footprints were coming. They followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter and at last disappeared altogether. So till those imprints were coming, those fresh muddy imprints were coming, they kept following, but gradually it started becoming lighter, fainter as in lighter, and then finally no marks started coming. It stopped, they disappeared. So obviously they couldn't do anything about it. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Bewildered as in totally confused. They were perplexed. They were like, from where are these steps coming and where suddenly they disappeared? They were totally shocked. But, they did not, they had been following that scientist. Now, they were not really aware of that though, but who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. This scientist had just discovered it. Griffin the scientist had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. Now he was very curious. He was inquisitive. He wanted to make this human body invisible. How does he do it? So he kept trying a lot of experiments and eventually he succeeded. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. Now, he swallowed certain rare drugs. Whatever experiment he did, he made those drugs, he swallowed. Now, he tested it on himself. So, he took the drugs, right? And his body became transparent like the glass. But yes, the body also remained. It was the solidness, it was there. It was as solid as the glass, but equally transparent. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person, never obeyed laws. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Where he was staying on rent. So his landlord did not like, he wanted to just get rid of him. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. Now that landlord, tried to, put him away. He tried to remove him from the house. So to take revenge of that, he had literally put the whole house on fire. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Now, one everything has its own pros and cons. So here what happened was he had to remove his clothes. If he wanted to be invisible, if he had his clothes on, he would be visible to people. But if he removed his clothes, he would go without clothes, then he would not be visible to anybody. He would be invisible. Thus it was that he became a homeless wanderer without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. Now, how does the brilliant mind really help him here? How did it help him? In fact, he fell into trouble. See, he became a homeless wanderer because he put that house on fire. Then he was without clothes. He couldn't wear clothes. If he would wear clothes, he would be visible. Without money, he had no money at all because now that he was invisible, he could do nothing to earn money. And quite invisible, that he was. But this was there until he suddenly, stepped in some mud where he started leaving the footprints those two boys had seen right in the beginning of the chapter. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London. He very easily escaped because finally that mud, went away from the sole of his foot. So it was, he was not, no longer the footprints were visible and he was safe. But his adventures were by no means over. That was not the end of it. In fact, this episode was the beginning. That was the first thing he did. The trouble he faced after getting invisible. Lots more to come. Lots more in the pipeline. Let's watch. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was the bad time of the year. Can you tell me why? Exactly. It was winter time. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold and he could not do without clothes. He would feel cold, it's bitterly cold. It's midwinter in London. They are, into 3 and 4 layers. They are into those thick furry coats. How can he be without clothes? He couldn't take it. It was very cold. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. Now, he was roaming around in the streets. He was invisible, but at the same time, he was feeling cold. So he decided to slip into a big London store and get some warmth there. He said, let me go and try getting some warmth inside. Outside in the open, it's way colder. Closing time arrived. Now he is in the store and it's time for the store to close. And as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. So as soon as the people left the store, right, there was nobody around, so he could easily take some clothes, put them on, eat some food, and all that without paying a penny. There was nobody around to stop him. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. He tried opening so many boxes and wrappers to get the clothes that fitted him. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat, he became a fully dressed, visible person. Now remember, the moment he would put on clothes, he was visible. So what he did was, he put on his shoes, an overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat. So now, obviously, he was visible. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Now, this was a big mega superstore. So, everything is available under one roof. So, he got his clothes. He went to the restaurant section. He got his food. Then, after that, he even had time for good desserts. So, he took sweets. He topped it with wine, which came from the grocery store, which came as in he took it from there. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. He had a great time. He was nice and warm. His tummy was full, and now it was time for him to take a good nap. So he settled himself on a pile of quilt. You know what's a quilt, right? A warm bed covering made of padding, enclosed between layers of fabric and kept in place by lines of stitching, typically applied in a decorative design. So, you know, those quilts are those nice warm, they're not blankets. These quilts are, you know, they have the stitches and they're a little thicker. They're very nice and cozy. So, yeah, he settled himself in that. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in the good time, all might have been well. Now, because he had eaten, he had had a feast, he was nice and warm. So he fell asleep, and it was deep sleep, and he did not realize that he has not woken up before the people entered the store. Before they opened it, he overslept. So if only he had managed to wake up in time before they opened, he would have been saved. But the problem was he overslept. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. He was fast asleep when the assistants came to open the store. When he saw a couple of them approaching, suddenly he heard the noise and he saw them coming. He panicked and began to run. He got up from deep sleep and suddenly he saw those people. So he panicked and he just got up and he started to run. They naturally gave chase. They equally chased him. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. Now he knew, right now he was visible because he had his clothes on. So what he started doing was he started removing the clothes, and then he became invisible, and then, you know, they couldn't catch him. So yeah, he started taking off his newly found clothes. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January air. It was extremely cold, and again he was without clothes. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the space above his shoulders. Now he said, now let me try and get something, let me go to a theatrical company, you know, where they have drama, where they have those costumes and many things over there. So he said, come on, let me go and try something from there. So he went in the hope of finding not only clothes, he would wear them, but something that would actually hide the empty space above his shoulders. Now that was something which was, you know, making people feel that, oh, there is someone. Shivering with cold, he hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theatre world. Very cold, it was extremely cold, so he quickly ran to the Drury Lane and the center of the theatre world. He landed up there as he was shivering with cold. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way invisible upstairs and came out a little later wearing bandages round his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers, and a large hat. This is exactly what you see here. The same description. So yeah, he went and he covered. Now just remember one thing. He was invisible. But at the same time, the solid body was there. The body had not melted. Just like the glass, it's invisible, but it's there. So likewise, the body was there, but it was invisible. So he had to, tie it and cover it up. To escape without being seen, he callously attacked the shopkeeper from behind, after which he robbed him of all the money he could find. He just attacked the shopkeeper from behind. He stole even the money from there. He took all the clothes and then he stole the money as well. And he wanted to escape without being seen. So, that's how he hidingly did it. Eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village of Iping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. Now, he wanted to get away from that place. So what he did was, he took a train to the village of Iping, and there he had booked 2 rooms in an inn. Inn is just like, a small hotel that we could say, where you can stay. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. Now generally in winters, in peak winters, nobody really goes out. They don't go. Now he taking 2 rooms over there itself was something very unusual. A stranger of such uncommon appearance. Now he was looking odd, wasn't he? He was bandaged with glasses and, big hat. Set all tongues wagging. Now his appearance itself was such that everyone started gossiping about him. Everyone had guesses. Who is he? What is he? Because he was looking odd. That appearance was very strange. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly. Now she tried to be friendly to this person to know more about him. But Griffin had no desire to talk. He just didn't want to talk to her, and he told her, my reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude, as in a state or a situation of being alone. He says, I don't want anyone bothering me. I want to be by myself. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. Besides, an accident has affected my face. Now he knew that they were trying to find out what was wrong with his face. Why was it bandaged? It was covered with bandage. So he just tells her that an accident has affected my face. That is why I have this bandage. In case they are curious, what is he and who is he? Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist, as in of a person or their behavior, unconventional and slightly strange. Says he is not the typical one. He's an eccentric scientist. And in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, he paid her all the money in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper. Now, she found him extraordinary, an extraordinary scientist. Moreover, he had paid all the money in advance. So she was okay with whatever he did. She was okay with her strange habits and his irritable temper. His temper was such that anyone would get irritated, but she took it. Why? Because she had got the money. But the stolen money did not last long. It never does. It never does. We all know that. The stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. He was out of the money. He ran out of money. So he had to admit that he does not have any more cash on him. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. He pretended, he had to fake it. He told them a lie that, look, I am expecting a check any moment. I shall settle the remaining dues. So don't worry. As soon as it comes, I will settle the account. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Now, something had to happen. I mean, he was there. He was invisible. So obviously something was expected. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by the noises in the study. Clergyman, you can see him there, a male priest, minister or religious leader, especially a Christian one. So in Catholics they have this, right? So he is the Christian clergyman. So they were awakened early in the morning, with some noises coming from the study, where the study was. Creeping downstairs, they heard the chink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. Suddenly they realized, they heard the chink, someone was taking the money. When you take that money, the coins, how that sound comes. So the chink of the money being taken, now somebody was taking it from the clergyman's desk. Without making any noise and with a poker as in a metal rod with a handle used for prodding and stirring an open fire. So you have that big tall metal rod thing. So he had a poker grasped firmly in his hand. He was holding it tightly in his hand. The clergyman flung open the door. He wanted to see who is in his room, who is in the study room. Surrender, he spoke, he screamed. Then to his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. There was no one. He could not see anyone. Then from where did that sound come? He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. They thought somebody has climbed up the chimney and is, hiding there. Every possible place where anyone could, hide, they went and checked, but there was no one. There wasn't a sign of anybody. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. The drawer was open and the money was missing. Extraordinary affair, the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. He said, this is something extraordinary. What has happened? The money is gone, the drawer is open and still we couldn't find anybody. How is it possible? This is something very, very strange. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. Now, that was the episode that happened early in the morning. Immediately after that, what had happened? The behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. Now, the furniture of Mrs. Hall started behaving odd. It started behaving strangely. Now, that was way more extraordinary. The landlord and his wife were up very early and were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Now, they had got up very early and they found the scientist's door open, the room door open. Usually, it was shut and locked. And he was furious if anyone entered his room. If anyone would enter his room, he would get extremely angry. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. Now, both of them felt that, oh, the door is open, he's nowhere around. Let's go and see what's going on inside. We should not miss this opportunity. They peeped round the door, saw nobody and decided to investigate. They decided to get in and look around what's happening. The bedclothes were cold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time. He was not there. Generally when you leave the bed, it's warm. So it was cold. That means it showed that the scientist had woken up way early. And stranger still, the clothes and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. Now, all that he was dressed in, those bandages, the clothes, everything was lying in the room. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. Someone did that, a sniff, someone close to her ear. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost leaped up and dashed itself into her face. Now, it started happening immediately, one after the other. First, she heard a sniff next to her ear. Immediately after that, the hat on the bedpost, which was there on the bedpost, leaped up, came out from there and dashed into her face. It hit her on the face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. So you see the behavior of the furniture. The bedroom, there was a chair, it became alive. Springing into the air, it charged straight at her, legs foremost. swinged up into the air and it moved towards her with the legs right there. It started moving towards her. As she and her husband turned away in terror, they were horrified, they were shocked, they were totally confused. What is happening? The extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. The chair made them go out forcibly, and immediately the door was shut and it was locked once they were out of the room. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. She was in a daze. She did not know what was happening. She was wildly emotional and exaggerated reactions. She was wondering what is happening, and she literally, fell down the stairs with that thing going on in her head. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits. Obviously, when you can't see someone around and you're seeing the furniture moving, the cap, the hat coming towards you, so you'll feel it is haunted. There are ghosts there. So that's what she felt. It was haunted by spirits. And that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. That stranger has done something. He has put ghosts over there. That's why my furniture has come alive. My poor mother used to sit in that chair. She moaned. She was crying. She said, my poor mother, she used to use that chair. To think it should rise up against me now? Said that my mother used to sit there. How can I think that chair would come and attack me? The feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. Now the neighbors also started feeling, what is witchcraft? The practice of magic, especially black magic, the use of spells. Now we've all heard what is black magic. They use all the different tantra and mantra and they do things. So that's how they felt someone had cast a spell. So they say something like that only has happened here. But witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Now this happened. But when the robbery of the clergyman, the clergyman's desk, what it had been robbed, when that news spread, everyone felt that something is fishy with this man. This scientist definitely was involved in it. He was a part of it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not long before that he had no money. Now, he was strange. He stole the money, and what he did was immediately he came and he paid the cashier. And he, not a little, a few days back only he had told them that he did not have any money. And soon he gives them the cash after the robbery. So it was all connected. So he gave them and they were like, where did this money come from? The village constable was secretly sent for. The constable was called. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. She just directly went to him before even the constable could come and do any questioning. She went there very boldly and he, the scientist, somehow mysteriously appeared from nowhere. He came from his empty bedroom. There was nobody. Then suddenly he just appeared. I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs, she demanded. She was very upset because that was her mom's chair. Her mom used to sit there and the same chair attacked her. So she was very upset. So she goes to him and she asks him, I want to know what you have been doing upstairs to my chair. I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room. See, what is happening? You are coming from an empty room. You are entering a locked room. How is it? What is happening? I want to know. The scientist was always quick-tempered. Now he became furious. He was extremely short-tempered. He just gave it up. You don't understand who or what I am? He shouted. Very well, I'll show you. Suddenly he threw off the bandages, the whiskers, the spectacles, and even the nose, that artificial nose. What were the whiskers? Long projecting hair growing from the face or the snout of many mammals. So he had those whiskers as well. He threw everything out. He just removed everything. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at a headless man. The face, the head was not visible. Everyone was shocked. What are they looking at? Whom are they looking at? Mr. Jaffers, the constable, now arrived. At that point of time, that constable who had been called, he arrived, Mr. Jaffers, and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. He was shocked. He says, oh my God, I have to arrest this man who doesn't have a head. But Jaffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then that person had to be arrested with or without his head. He says irrespective. The magistrates, it has come from the magistrate. The warrant has been issued. So irrespective whether the head is there or not there, that person had to be arrested. There followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Now, again the same thing what he did in the store. He had to escape from there, right? So what he started doing now, obviously the constable could not catch him. Why? Because he was getting more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Item of clothing. One item of clothing he went on removing, so he went on becoming invisible. Finally, a shirt flew into the air and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. So as soon as the shirt was out, he was totally invisible. Now, it was very difficult for the constable to catch someone who was not visible. Some people tried to help him, but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. Some people actually tried to help him out, but he just gave them a good blow and, it was really pointless helping such a person. In the end, Jaffers was knocked unconscious as he made a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. He tried making one last attempt, but he was knocked down unconscious. He fell unconscious to the floor. There were nervous, excited cries of, hold him. Everyone was screaming, hold him, hold him. Some were excited, some were nervous. They were scared because as they used to stand and suddenly he used to come and, give them a good one. But this was easier said than done. It was not easy to catch him. It was easy to say, but very difficult to catch him. In fact, as good as impossible. Griffin had shaken himself free and no one knew where to lay hands on him. He had become fully invisible and people did not know where to catch him and how to catch him. He was not in that condition, not, the way that they could catch him, it was not even possible. So he had literally freed himself. He had shaken himself free because nobody could ever see him, nobody could ever catch him. So you see, that was the effect of science discovery being misused. Science is a magnificent force, but it is not a teacher of morals. William Jennings Bryan. Science will not tell you this is good and this is not good, don't do this and don't do that. It is for you to analyze. It is for your conscience to tell you now, he did not do that. He misused it fully. To the extent that he himself had to suffer. He did not realize before taking that step that what am I doing? By becoming invisible, what will I get out of it? And he did not use it for the welfare of the society. He totally created a lot of trouble for everyone around him. So you see, any powers that you hold, they should never be misused. Now this is science, but if any one of us holds power of a position, even that should never be misused. Yes, so please always keep that in mind. And if you are at any such position or if you find anyone at any such position, use it for the welfare of the society and not causing any trouble to anyone. Yes, so for many such more lessons, morals, and rather you should say the lessons of life. Keep watching and keep learning.